Give me 1 second.
Andrew, you're in a big room. You don't have any headphones or anything you might have to lean in with your voice a little bit.
Can you hear me fine?
Yeah, we can just hear background and it kind of echoes a little. So yeah, I think we'll be okay.
All right.
Hello, everyone.
Hello, good afternoon. Hey, Maury and Dan, a whole host of people. I see Ken. We're just going to give folks just a few minutes as it takes a little while for folks to get settled in. It's good to see everyone. All right. We're coming up on a 12 o'clock hour, so I would just open up with just a few words of introduction for today, and then we'll move into the panel discussion. And again, a lot of our colleagues will start filtering in, but we have an action-packed day today. Another panel that we are very excited to bring before you. Today's session is called Behind the Scenes, and it's life, or a snapshot of life, if you will, into a small, a mid-sized, or a large firm. So we have some great panelists here that are excited to kind of share their experiences with all of you and engage in a Q&A session. Believe it or not, this is our next to last session for the year. We hope that's been enjoyable for you, and we'll be looking probably towards the end of May or early June to have a debrief session so we can learn about your experiences and ways that we can improve the program for season 3. Between now and that period, though, we'll have one more session, which we're looking to do in person as a celebration. And if you recall, there was a survey that was released probably earlier this week. And I'm gonna ask Kathy to kind of post that link back into the chat whenever she has an available moment. But we'd be grateful. It's just a 3-question survey. If you could take some time throughout this hour to fill that in, and that would really help shape our next steps for that April the 29th meeting and celebration of the great work that you each have done. So with that, I believe I'm going to turn it over to Shannon, who is going to get our panel discussion going, or at least introduce our members for our panel discussion. So Shannon?
Absolutely. Hello, everyone. I hope everybody is doing well in their mentorship pairs. If anybody has any thoughts or needs or questions, you can always reach out to myself, Corey, or Kathy. So I hope everything is going well in that area, but we're going to jump right into it today. And we're going to introduce our lovely panelists. So first we have Marcus Thomas, and he's the managing principal at KEI Architects, and he will be representing our small firm on the panel. And then we also have Andrew McKinley from the principal at BIA Design Architects for our mid-size. And then we have Hailey Owens from VMDO Architects, and she will be representing the large firms. And so we're going to be doing a bit of a panel discussion today. But before we get into that, we're going to give our panelists a chance to introduce themselves and talk a little bit about their journey and experience to get to where they are today. So we'll start with Marcus, and then go to Andrew, and then go to Hailey, and then we'll get into our Q&A. And again, thank you all for joining. Again, this session is being recorded. I know quite a few students have midterms around this time, so I know some are going to look back at this recording because they're looking at what firms to apply to and sizes. So very excited to record and have this content for anyone who's here with us live today. So with that, Marcus, I'm going to throw it to you.
Thank you. All right. Let me share my screen. All right, so a little bit, brief history of Marcus Thomas. Graduated from Hampton University with a Master of Architecture in 2013. My journey began sort of untraditionally as I started out on the owner side at the University of Richmond, and then decided that I needed to go work for an architect. Went to Gresham Smith for a year, the large firm, and then took it down to a mid-sized firm, McMillan Pazin Smith Architecture in South Carolina, until I finally got my opportunity to come back in a principal capacity with KEI in 2019. So a little bit about KEI. KEI is a small firm. However, we have been around for a long time. We were established in 1983. We have studios in Richmond, Virginia, and Charlotte, North Carolina. And we provide services, architecture, obviously, interior design, construction administration, project management, and asset management and move coordination. And I'm gonna just briefly go through a few projects that I've had the chance to both work on and manage from throughout my career. First is the North Charleston Athletic Center. It's a 5,200 square foot facility in North Charleston, South Carolina. One of the first projects I got to work on when I got to NPS was the Rock Hill Sports and Event Center in Rock Hill, South Carolina, a 140,000 square foot facility. If you watch the American Cornhole Championships in the summer, this is the facility that they do that at, which is kind of interesting. And then we had an opportunity to manage and design the Barton College Athletic Stadium in Wilson, North Carolina, and the Charleston Southern Residence Hall in North Charleston, South Carolina. So spent a lot of time in the Carolinas performing work, and really happy to be back at KEI and looking forward to sharing some more with you.
Beautiful work, Marcus.
Appreciate it.
All right. Hopefully everybody can get the a view into the mid-sized firm. Appreciate you guys having me here, and thank you to Shannon for facilitating the discussion today. My name is Andrew McKinley. I'm a principal at a mid-sized firm, VIA Design Architects, located in Norfolk. And for those who don't know, VIA just stands for by way of design. So I actually stepped away from talking about a lot about our firm and our work, really kind of focused on what it's like to work in a mid-sized firm. So if I can kick you off. So here's my journey. Looks like Marcus and I were swirling around the state on a little bit of a different path and pattern. But I am originally from the city of Richmond, Virginia, where I was born and raised, and went to high school. Graduated, went to Blacksburg, so I am a Hokie, went to school, graduated in 2007. And in that time, I interned at three different summers at two different firms. One was a mid-sized firm located in Richmond, Commonwealth Architects. And then the other was a large firm, Baskerville. So I got to spend a little bit of time in both different sizes to truly try to explore a little bit about what it meant to work in each of those two different types of firms or sizes of firms. And of course, they do have very different cultures by way of being different sizes, as well as just by way of different management, as every firm does. So once I graduated from Virginia Tech, I moved up to Alexandria, wanted to live in and try out a bigger city. So kind of a small offshoot of Washington, D.C., where you can metro into downtown and hang out, have a good time, and enjoy all the amenities that a large city has. But I worked there for 3 years at Rust Orling Architects, which is a mid-sized firm. So obviously I ultimately landed on that size of a firm where I really wanted to spend some more of my time. For personal reasons, moved down to Williamsburg, worked for Guernsey Tingle Architects, another mid-sized firm, and then found my way to VIA Design Architects in 2014, where I've been ever since. When I started, we were on the cusp. We were definitely a mid-sized firm, but definitely on the smaller end. And over the time that I've been here, we've definitely evolved and grown a little bit. So became a principal just over 5 years ago, and now get to enjoy a lot of my time participating with AIA and helping to mentor younger folks. So we've got a diverse skill set here in the office. It's one of the things that we really enjoy and put a very specific and strategic focus on. So we're not a large firm. We've got 11 people, but we carry skills in a very broad spectrum. So we've got licensed architects and landscape architects, but we also have a very intentional focus for interior design, graphics and branding, and signage and wayfinding. But to capitalize on that, we've got a number of folks in the office with other skills, with backgrounds in industrial design, energy modeling, website design, and computer coding. All those skills are pretty exciting to have on staff, and we definitely find ways to put them to use to really help to amplify the quality of projects that we deliver and the expectations that our clients have of us. And down here is just kind of a mission statement from the firm. It's all about just finding a way to bring the best idea forward. Project involvement for us, it doesn't really matter where you are in your career path. If you're in a mid-sized firm or I assume in a small firm as well, you're really gonna have to dive in on every aspect of a project. So this little dashed line on the right here just represents, yes, you are involved. Yes, you need to participate, and you're gonna get to celebrate all the glory at project closeout. So from initial client meetings and pre-design, this is an actual image of me here within the first year of starting at VIA, leading this group discussion, which is really exciting, through schematics, design development, and construction documents. So everything, including specifications and details, critical. There's nobody else in a mid-sized firm to do them, so you get exposure to every aspect along the way, and through construction, being out in the field, responding to RFIs, handling submittals, and as I said before, the exciting moment when you cut the ribbon and your client says that the project looks just like the drawings. Last year, we were excited to yet another kind of strategic move on our part, really launch this culture of mentorship. So at VIA, each summer now, starting last year and going forward, we try to partner one intern with each of our 4 principals. And so really trying to give exposure to every aspect of what we are doing day in and day out for the plus or minus 3 months that each individual is here. So last year, we're fortunate to have these 4 folks, and you can see that they represent a pretty diverse background of schools, universities that they have attended, which was important to us to focus on as well. And here we are having a good time celebrating the little photo shoot. And just a reminder that in a mid-sized firm, you represent a pretty significant percentage of staff available. You couldn't hide if you wanted to, and that's one of the best parts about it, is that everybody's influence and impact is felt, and the opportunities are tremendous to get exposure to every aspect of the profession. With that, I'll turn it over.
Great. That was great insight, Andrew. Thanks for sharing. All right, I'm going to share a little bit about the large firm perspective. My name is Hailey Owens, and I work at BMDO Architects. I'm about 2.5 years out of school. So I'm like at the beginning. So I thought I might share a little bit about what that first 2.5 years has looked like to help me feel settled in the profession, and what and find the opportunities here, because I do think it's always a strange transition. So a little bit on the left about thesis, grounding in architecture and light, shadow, and landscape. A little bit about moving and being at BMDO, and just as I was thinking about images for this, it really is about people. I think BMDO is an office of 85 folks. We have an office in DC and an office in Charlottesville, but it has always felt like small communities that are part of larger communities for me. So every single person I feel like I know really well, and they have very unique personalities. It's fun to work together. And then on the right are some opportunities that I found that were either I was directed to through my interests in equity. This program, Pathways to Equity, is a great one for people who are both new to thinking about this and want to learn more, or want to get connected to a larger community of folks around the country that are thinking about these issues. And that's why it's on Zoom. This is actually pre-pandemic, so we were ahead of the curve, everybody. Another great opportunity for both students and emerging designers is the state-sponsored ELA program, Emerging Leaders in Architecture, and I was part of that group last year. And that was a wonderful way to get connected to the local state community of young professionals that are really passionate about working with their community and collaborating across firms. So just a little hint of how things might go in the beginning. So VMDO, I'm from Charlottesville, so I feel really lucky to be here, and this is definitely the biggest office in our town. This is our building, and that we've sprouted from. Of course, I'd never want to forget our amazing DC office that's allowed us to expand up north and expand our reach. But we typically collaborate in a hybrid way with them. Each person in the DC office is actually partnered with one of our 3 studios. So we have 3 focus areas: community athletics, higher education, and K-12 education. And so we feel very connected to that office, even though they're 2.5 hours away. And as I mentioned earlier, that feeling of intimacy of community with, even though it's a large office, is really facilitated because each studio is on a different floor. I'm up here on the 3rd floor in higher ed, but because of that, the way the space is, you do feel like you know your team really well, and you don't feel like you're lost in within a large organization. I wanted to pull these images together just to show the breadth of work that I think is possible when you have a larger office. An example from the athletics and community studio is the Lever Run Community Center. This was an experiment in heavy timber and CLT, and really amazing attention to craft and materiality. In the center is a residence hall in Miami, which is a huge, huge endeavor, but also interesting material experimentation. And I think our relationship to the universities in Florida is really interesting. And I think that has a lot to do with the size and just the expertise in the office. And then in our K-12 studio, a huge emphasis on sustainability and net zero. And so there's a lot of expertise in that studio, and it's great for early education, right? We really want our kids to feel like they're in an excellent learning environment. Righty, next one. Well, let me go. Oh, I'm frozen. Well, all I wanted to share after this slide was that in the office, we really consider ourselves a culture of learning and a teaching office. So there's just such a numerous amount of opportunities to either go out on site and see what people are up to and have somebody really explain to you what's going on. We have every Thursday, we have what are called Design Thursdays, awesome small group events where we either are going deep dive into a project that's online, or somebody's sharing out about a conference, or one of the advocacies within our office is we have, oh, hey, we're back. Okay, so that's what you see in the bottom left, those kinds of conversations where people are sharing out about things that they're learning. We also have a yearbook called Ethos. It's kind of a space where we deep dive into 3 projects, one from each studio, and really pull out those learning moments. And it's an opportunity for all of us to come together and, of course, practice our graphic skills. There's a travel fellowship where you can apply to win money to go travel for a week and a half, and of course share back your research. And then lastly, just a wonderful thing that I got to be a part of when I first joined, and that every new hire gets to be a part of, is our annual chandelier project. So really great space to explore, show people what you know, and start to introduce yourself to a larger firm.
Amazing. So clearly each of you has a very different scope of what the firm is doing, but I think all of you sold it very well. I'm currently in the market to apply to jobs, so I'm adding to the list whenever I see firms that kind of inspire and talk about culture and how it's important to them. So great, let's hop into questions if we're ready. So I think we'll start, if you're looking at our pre-sent questions to our panelists. Number 4, what do you think are the key attributes that I think you all alluded to that one can expect, especially for new hires from firm culture related to the firm size? And then kind of a follow-up to that, what are the hallmarks you would expect in a healthy firm culture? So why don't we start with Marcus?
Yeah, thank you. That's a good question. I think from a small firm perspective, one of the things that we embrace the most is collaboration, right? Our office right now in Richmond is around 7. So we really have the opportunity, for better or worse, to be all up in each other's business. There is, like Andrew was saying, there's no hiding. We can see what each other's working on, but that's good because it also produces better work in the grand scheme of things. We have the ability to just sort of shut it down and all congregate in the conference room and say, let's do an instant pinup. Let's figure this problem out. Somebody's struggling. We have the ability to all gather around one computer or one movable whiteboard in the office and sketch, draw out, a problem until we have it solved. And, at the end of the day, that produces, stronger architecture, for sure. So that's definitely one of the key attributes you can expect when you go to a small firm, is that specialized acute attention that you might not necessarily get at a larger firm. When I was at Gresham Smith, I mean, it was over 500. So you sat at your desk, you did what you were supposed to do, work within your team, but I didn't know anybody from Nashville or the Miami office or anything like that. So that's certainly one of the key benefits if you interact well in that sort of environment.
Yeah, and piggyback on Marcus's comments, architecture is all about people and it's all about ideas. And, one of our mission as an architecture firm is to, celebrate the best idea. So exposure to the profession and the opportunity to contribute and to see your ideas come forward and become reality is just extremely rewarding in the profession. And as a mid-sized firm, everybody has the opportunity and responsibility, and the respect and collegiality and collaboration that comes with that, I think really helps to bolster up confidence to be exposed to yet the next new thing, because architecture is a long road to learn how to adapt, how to be resourceful. And so I think that that support system and feedback loop becomes a critical component to healthy culture and growth and confidence to take on kind of the next unknown challenge.
I think that one difference that maybe people are concerned of with the larger size office is that you don't have a sense of belonging or place within a community. And so I don't think I would be at an office if I didn't feel that. And I really think that asking your offices, if you do feel like you're in a larger firm, to figure out ways to cultivate that sense of belonging and really intimate relationships with each other. So I think that that's one thing that one shouldn't be too worried about with larger offices. There's ways we can structure our communities to create good experiences for everybody. So I just want to say that. But I did also want to add that I think the cool thing about the larger firm culture, or a larger firm, is you do have greater access to resources. I worked at a really tiny firm for an intern internship. And I find being here at BMDO is really cool because we have a director of sustainability and equity and a director of visualization. So there's really people who have these deep wealth of expertise because that's really what they can focus their time on. And you can have a one-on-one conversation, or you bring an issue to them and they're like, oh yeah, let's render it like this. And you can have really just amazing access to those folks in-house. So that's one extra tidbit.
Absolutely, yes. And I think going off of that point, I actually met with my mentor this morning. I think she's on this call. Hey, Jean. But talking about how you should feel empowered as a student or an entry-level designer to ask about that firm culture, whether no matter the size, even if it's a large firm, ask about what is that firm culture in your actual office. Maybe there's 30 offices across the country, but your firm still has a good culture. You should feel empowered to ask that when you're on an interview, to ask about that culture. So I see a few questions in the chat, and before we get to those, I think we'll do a precursor talking about hiring at firms of different size levels. So for students that are looking for their first jobs and internships this summer, what would you say are the top 3 characteristics you'd look for in hiring a recent college graduate? And this time, let's start with Andrew.
Sure. I think that, ability to think, which is usually demonstrated within a portfolio with examples of work. At least having familiarity with the tools, some ability to use basic softwares. We use a pretty limited array because we only have so many people. We want to make sure that if one person is out, the other person can pick up the hammer and swing it, so to speak. But some exposure to the tools like Revit, Photoshop, InDesign are kind of the workhorse that we use. The third one is gumption. Are you excited about architecture and the opportunities that they provide and the challenges that come with it?
Excellent.
Yeah, I think, if that's okay,
No,
we'll
go
go
for
on.
it.
Okay. So I think that one of the things that our office is always very interested in is process, and really what Andrew said, can you think? I feel like it's about, can you connect your work to the larger systems at play? Are you interested in the detail and the larger building? I feel like what we look for in student work is there a deep interest in something? It could be anything that's unique to you, but really an interest in going deep into that and also zooming out. So that is kind of one of the ways of thinking about communicating your work. And the other thing is, can you communicate that? It's not just about, can you show it in your visuals, but how do you talk about it verbally? Are you able to make that, to clearly talk about what it is that you're interested in? And one thing I hear from students a lot is a fear of not knowing the right programs. And I definitely didn't know the right programs. And I think, but what I did know was that what I did know, I knew really well. And so again, being able to demonstrate your ability to learn, because what I'm using in my office is very different than what another office is using. So having that ability to show that what you do know, you know really well, I think is a strong indicator for offices looking to hire.
So now that I'm last, everything that Andrew said, everything that Hailey said, but one thing that I will add, and one question that we specifically ask when we interview are questions around drive, right? And the ability and the desire to learn and grow. Because we are a small firm, a lot of times the leaders of that firm are stretched thin. I mean, I am rarely in the office. And so, we need people, we look for people to bring on board who are willing to go the extra mile to learn new skills, new tasks, pick things up, and then carry the torch. Self-starters, individuals who will see a need and then automatically jump and sort of ask for forgiveness later, right? And come to us as leadership or project manager and say, hey, I saw this needed to get done. Here's what I did. What do you think? Like, what could, that sort of thing. We look strongly at that, and we try to individually seek out people who want to do that sort of thing, and then want to grow through the ranks of the firm, who have the desire to become licensed, and then a desire to become a project manager, and then a principal, and ownership, and so on and so forth. We look specifically for that sort of thing, and we try to foster that within our firm culture.
Absolutely. So I think a common thread throughout that is confidence and the ability to grow that confidence while you're at the firm. So students, work on your confidence. We all have something to offer, and you're all valuable. Firms want you. So don't feel like you're ever unwanted, because it's just as much their responsibility and the responsibility of the profession to grow you into the leaders of tomorrow. Wow, I sound like a fortune cookie. Just to round out one topic that Andrew brought up of this conversation, what is the role of technology in your office? So first, can we quickly, just for Hailey and Marcus, what software do you use at your office? And then we'll get into a deeper part of that conversation.
We use, because we collaborate a lot with larger firms, we use all the softwares larger firms use. So we're in Revit, we use BIM 360, we use all the Adobe softwares, we use Lumion, looking at Inkscape. I mean, so the whole shebang. I mean, that's one of the things. We collaborate a lot, which is another really strong benefit of a small firm, in my opinion, is we get to see what others are doing and team with them. But with that comes our need to invest in the same sorts of tech softwares and technologies. And so we have access to all of that. Great.
Yeah, that same list, plus definitely using Inkscape in the day-to-day, Lumion a little bit more special occasion, and SketchUp for early design work.
Okay.
And of course, awesome. The hand.
Yes, we rarely talk about it anymore, but I personally always, and got a little slack from some of my friends at school, I always had to start at the drafting table first, and then I could put my mind into the computer, because you can use the computer as a design tool, and that's a great skill to have, but sometimes you just need that crappy sketch on a napkin to get your head together. Awesome. So let's expand on that conversation. The role of technology in your office. How do you see it going through the different phases of design, from concepts to construction documentation to systems analysis and energy modeling and all of that? I know personally it's an area that I want to grow more confident in as a recent graduate just last year. I've been told I had to know something to be hireable, and I don't know if that's a bunch of garbage, or if I should really be focusing on certain areas for different design aspects. So why don't we start with Hailey?
Sure thing. Yeah, I to kind of address at the end of what you were saying there, I think that students, more than anything, whatever program you're using, being able to communicate that you know how to show your idea through your tool. So, be that really paying attention to your line weights in AutoCAD, or having really cool axons because you're using Rhino. I mean, ultimately, whatever software you are using, it's about being able to use the tool to its best ability. You don't have to know it going into the office. So in concept design, it's definitely sketching, lots of trace paper, but then we very quickly will move into SketchUp. And from there, you can render super fast in Inkscape. So, I mean, it's like, once you get it into the model, you can start making really realistic stuff, and while still being very conceptual. And from there, Revit is king for the rest of the process, sometimes pulling from Revit back into SketchUp for some quick model ideas. But as far as systems analysis, I think this is something where, being a larger firm and working on big projects might be a little different than other offices. It's just that we do rely a lot on our consultants to do energy modeling. We work with some really excellent engineers, and so they'll do that kind of work. But for quick in-house stuff, Sapphira and Cove Tool are ones that some of us are familiar with.
I muted myself. Go for it, Andrew.
Yeah, Revit's definitely our workhorse. When it comes to early design, it's always on trace paper, for sure. I think everyone in the office is out to lunch, so I'll say it. Sometimes I sneak a little bit of SketchUp in, but not everybody here is even fluent with SketchUp. It's a great tool, testing your model, your massing. It's the fastest thing, but we do use Lumion. We use a number of different tools, but because we do our documents in Revit, we're always looking to just streamline. We get together every Monday at noon and do a roundtable. The topics have shifted over time, but it started as a Revit roundtable to share best practices about what we're doing. What do folks actively have on their plates, and is there a better way to do it? So kind of getting some real live coaching sessions with actual current events. One thing that hasn't been touched on yet, we've actually started using Cove tool. We dabbled with Sapphire for a little bit, but Cove has proven to be a little bit more malleable for us because we're so streamlined in Revit that we're doing some early energy modeling to submit for 2030, as well as to inform and respond to our predicted energy use intensities for our projects.
That's amazing. And just a plug for AIS, our sustainability and technology task force last year actually did a little review of Cove tool, and students seemed pretty responsive to it. So that's awesome. Marcus, what's going on there?
Yeah, so I'm last again. I get to say same because I mean, I think you'll start to see that there's some really strong similarities the way work industry-wide gets produced. I think the same goes from firm to firm. You'll find that in the pre-design, early schematic design stages, we're all on trace. We're in SketchUp or some sort of, flexible tool where you can iterate very, very quickly and test out your ideas and your concepts and thoughts. However, I'm a big no early design in Revit proponent. However, I have been recently debunked by a younger than me person who knew Revit so well, and actually one of my teammates on this project is on the call. Becky, I'm calling you out. One of her co-workers from Clark Nexon proved me completely wrong that that early design can't be done in Revit. But he had that knowledge and that he could move fast and quickly to be able to iterate very, very fast and then render in Inkscape so that we could see, that sort of thing. So apparently it can be done. I am still not sold on it, but if you have that talent and that skill, I definitely think that's something that firms would find valuable, because then it takes an extra step out of the process, right? You don't have to go back, model in SketchUp, and then remodel in Revit. You already have everything you need in the Revit software. So if that's something you can pick up or already have, I definitely think that's a skill that you should play up during the interview process. And then obviously design development, construction documents, so on and so forth. Revit, Bluebeam, Plan Grid, that sort of thing are pretty common tools that we use.
I would add, we have not adopted sorry to jump in there on you, Shannon. We've not adopted our own construction administration management software, but we do write into our specifications that we require that the contractor provide it. So we're seeing a lot of Procore usage. I'm sure that's industry-wide, and there's been a whole host or family of that style of software that's come forward, but it appears that Procore is emerging as kind of a front runner in that pack, and that's got its own challenges, but it does help to streamline documentation quite a bit. If you're not familiar with it, you should look into it.
Yeah, absolutely. And to go off Marcus, we had one of those wizards at my school that could just, it was magical, I have to say, but that's not everybody. It's, I was just floored, but anyway, yeah, no, I think that's great. And one other thing that I think Marcus touched on was some of the programs like Bluebeam and BIM 360 and Navisworks, stuff like that, that has more of the construction side. I don't think, I'm going to be honest, unless you're taking some sort of professional development course or you're getting a construction management minor at your school. Sometimes you aren't exposed to all of that stuff, but any chance you can get exposure or talk to mentors about that stuff, I think it's valuable. Let's get into some of the questions in the chat. So first we have Dan's question, maybe dipping into your own personal experiences. Are there any questions that you wish you asked during an interview process that would have made you aware of something at a firm, whether good or bad, when you were there in your first kind of few months to a year? You don't have to, not everybody also has to answer this question, but I do think it's a good question for some of our younger people on this call to know.
I mean, I think I didn't ask this, but I do think asking about work-life balance or built-in ways of protecting that balance is really good, or what the kinds of benefits that happen within an office. I think that is one of those hidden things. But the other side of it is, if you can talk to somebody that actually works in the office that is also a young designer, like asking to get connected to them is really helpful. They'll be pretty honest with you if they're miserable. I mean, and they'll be pretty honest with you if they're happy. So, I mean, I think that's one thing.
Absolutely. Awesome.
Yeah, I echo Hailey's response. I've actually done that in the past. So asked to speak with somebody who's been there for, 2 to 3 years at a time, and it is very telling.
Yeah, I have a little, because I started on the owner side, I have a little different experience. I kind of knew what I was going to be doing prior to me starting. However, when I got to Gresham, I just made a lot of assumptions about what I would be doing. And that led to a lot of, I wouldn't say disappointment, but it led to a lot of anxiety about when I was going to get to do those things that I thought I would be doing anyways. So I would just, when you're in the interview process, like Shannon sort of alluded to earlier, have the confidence to ask what the day looks like for someone in your position. And they'll tell you if they're honest, but I mean, they will, 9 times out of 10 tell you exactly what, a young architect or a young unlicensed professional will be doing day in and day out on projects. And it might not be out in the field having FaceTime with clients like you might think you have. It might be more sitting behind a computer and learning from those in the office. Those are key things that if you're curious about them, you need to have the confidence to ask up front.
I love that. Alrighty, so I think that's a good way to kind of round out that area of the conversation on confidence and hiring and making sure you're asking the right questions, especially for, I think that day in the life question is really good for young kind of upstarters like me that want to run the firm the day they walk in, and managing your expectations, because you're not going to run the firm your first day. But alrighty, I do actually want to ask on behalf of Maury, Andrew, if you could actually just explain your firm's mentee pairing system that you talked about a bit. If you could just talk about that a little bit more in depth.
Absolutely. To help mitigate some of that kind of startup maybe questions with young graduates, what we've tried to do is host as many interns as we can, give them exposure to our firm and us exposure to them to kind of understand and clarify a lot of how it is that we work. I mean, there really is no better substitute than actually just doing it. And I think for a lot of the interns, knowing that they've got a couple of months in there and that at the end of the summer, they go back to school and next year they can do something different or they can come back. We left all 4 of our interns last summer with a boomerang. And we said, hey, you're welcome to return if you want it. Give us a call in the spring. So what we do is simply go to career fairs. We went to 4 virtually this year as a mid-sized firm, and being mindful of resources, being there physically is actually pretty tough for us. We could reach Hampton University pretty easily. UVA gets a little further out. Virginia Tech, WAC, and some of the Carolina schools have a little bit of travel distance to them, so we're mindful of that. So we attended for try to identify folks that are interested in working, offer them a position, and then literally sit them in the room. We've got 4 principals and sit them in the room with a principal, and they go everywhere you go. They hear every conversation that you have. So it's literally just immersion. And the interns produce a lot of the work. You hear from the clients, you hear the conversations going on. And so you're actually contributing to professional work right away, which helps justify, somebody asked about the expense or the investment, but the interns are producing billable work. And so the investment's actually, return on investment from a business standpoint is actually better. So hopefully that answers multiple questions at the same time.
Absolutely. And I'm also seeing a little tidbit in the chat from Charles that I think is really important. Asking who people are as people is so important as well, because this is your team. This is going to be people you spend a large portion of your week with, and you've got to jive a bit. So making sure you ask them who they are and making sure they actually ask you who you are, to show that they care about that as well. I think that's very important. Okay, great. Let's get into another question. You brought up the term billable hours, and I think that's a great segue into talking about AXP in areas of practice. A lot of architecture students are maybe unsure about whether they want their license and whether they want to go for it. But no matter what, even if you're on the fence, students on this call, you should be booking those hours in your AXP so you have the option later down the line. You don't want to wait and then not be able to claim the hours you worked so hard for. So getting into the question of how quickly would you say a new hire gets exposed to various areas of practice, specifically those 6 different areas of practice for the AXP guidelines, and do you have any kind of examples of that at your office that you could speak to? And why don't we start with Marcus this time?
Yeah, so it depends. It depends a lot on, it really depends on what we have going on in the office at the time, especially being a small firm. You know, sometimes it's easier if you come in at the beginning of the project, then it becomes, you know, pretty succinct and easy to get out there and get exposed. And because we're a small firm, you best believe you're coming out on site when somebody else comes on site. But I mean, if we're hiring in the middle of DD or CDs, I mean, we make a concerted effort to make sure that, I mean, we know who in the office needs those hours. I mean, most of the time it's either myself or project manager or someone else who's licensed approving them. So we know what people are aware of. I went through it. I don't want to hold somebody hostage, put them behind a computer and just say, suck it up. You gotta just wait. You'll get them when you get them. No, we try to make sure that you get adequately exposed as quickly as possible, so that you can get and log those hours. And it also helps in the office as well. The sooner you can get out on site, begin to understand how buildings go together, which is vitally important to your progression as an architect, is actually understanding how buildings go together. We try to make it happen for you.
Great. Hailey, maybe you want to speak to this because you're probably in that phase right now.
Well, you know, I think it's kind of interesting. At our office, we have a unique pilot program. Over the past couple of years, we've had 2 people go through it where we actually start off new hires right out of school in CA. So they start on a project that's just entering CA, and that's where they begin their experience in the field. And I think that was not my path. I really wanted to know a lot about how we begin projects. So I started at the other side. But I think moral of the story is like communicating your interest, what you feel like you want to be learning. And of course that goes to like whatever projects are on are in whatever phases they are and where the need is. But I think every annual review, really advocating for yourself, which can feel hard, but that's the only way you ever are going to get anywhere, is by saying what you need and want. And so I think that because it's not a small office, that need becomes even more important, but whatever size, it's important.
Absolutely. Andrew, anything to add? I would say to students, make sure you actually schedule like almost check-in points with any supervisor you have at an office to make sure they know what you need and are checking in. But Andrew, anything to add?
I would add that AXP offers you an opportunity to kind of plan ahead and get in the queue for what's going on in the office. I echo Mark's sentiment here, where I can't expose you to anything I'm not actually doing as a practice. So what we have going on is the work. But if you use AXP and you're logging and tracking your hours, even if you're not intent on getting a license, you've got the opportunity to say, hey, look, I'm making a lot of progress in construction administration, but I haven't seen anything in the way of meeting with clients and developing proposals. Can you show me how that works? And that way you get ahead of it. And as a partner, you can look for opportunities to say, oh, wow, I just went out and met with this person, or I'm going to go out and meet with this person. Maybe better yet, I'll bring you along. And then you write down what you heard and try to write a proposal, and I'll write one, and we'll compare notes. So if you're tracking your hours, you can use it as a tool to say, here's where there are some gaps in my development. Can you help look for opportunities that will round me out?
Absolutely. I think that's great. Just again, advocating for yourself. Plugging what Corey said verbally to all those that maybe can't see the chat. Make sure to take just 20 seconds to fill out that 3-question survey we have in the chat for those that are attending. Great. Let's, I think we're going to start wrapping up soon, but I think one of the questions I would love to ask, especially understanding the different sizes and how that plays a role. What is your the relationship your firm has to the local community or city, and what role do you think an emerging professional has the opportunity to take in that? So why don't we start with that first part of the question and move into the second. So what part does your firm play in the community?
Yeah, I'll start here. I mean, KEI, we take special interest in the Richmond community. I mean, we're Richmond born and bred, right? We've been in Richmond for close to 40 years now. And so it's very, very important for us to stay engaged. So, I mean, you know, you'll notice that most firms are engaged in the chambers of commerce and, you know, those types of organizations. But, you know, we're also engaged with Metropolitan Business League. We are a minority-owned firm. And so that plays a role as well. We try to make sure that we are visible and that we are accessible to other students who are of color and other minorities, for them to know and understand that there are firms out there operating under that capacity. So the Metro Business League, we've been involved with organizations like Habitat for Humanity before, Richmond Young Professionals, Urban League, things of that nature are all ways that we try to make sure that we stay connected to the local community.
Fantastic. Andrew, do you want to go next?
Yeah, I really think that participation in the community is kind of a lifeline for architecture firms. I mean, you've got to be a part of it, and you get to be a part of it. And when you go out in the community and serve on boards or commissions, you really bring a unique perspective that other industries don't have. By default, you're born and trained to be a creative thinker and a problem solver in ways that many aren't. And when you speak in front of others, your perspective is really unique. And so, you know, being able to go out in the community and share that type of training that helps to solve real problems in the community or contribute to growth for different initiatives is a pretty empowering feeling and a really great way to give back to your community. And I would add also that community is different in the digital era as well. So being involved in your local community is important, but you've got the opportunity to be involved in a larger community as well, whether it's state or regional initiatives like Green Building Council, or giving back on Corey's shout out, annual code review cycles and other ways to give back to the AIA and other initiatives that are of personal interest that maybe aren't as active in your region.
At BMDO, I think because of the people that work here and the particular passions that they have for community, it's become a really big deal for our office. We have a number of pro bono projects that go through our office every year, one for each studio. So I got to work on a collaboration with UVA on an environmental center in Winneba, Ghana this past year, which was wild. But I think what's unique about the kind of community engagement and local community work that we do is that it's paid. Our office is putting in a considerable amount of time to pay you to do work that we're not getting paid for. But yeah, some of the stuff that's active right now is a local music resource center. We did a playground design for under-resourced community, and then also a really successful cafe that helps support disabled folks so they have a place to work. So there's just lots of things that make it fun to work on with your colleagues, and you don't have to like sneak off and go to outside of office.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think something students, if you're interested, students on here, if you haven't seen the film Citizen Architect, a little kind of case study into rural studio at Auburn University, I think if no one's doing rural studio every single day in an office setting, but it talks a lot about the spirit of engaging with your community. And it was a good learning experience for me when I was a student. So just wanted to plug that, not sponsored, but I think to wrap this up, let's talk about the future. How do you see the changes in the profession and the world affecting a firm at your scale? So into issues of sustainability, diversity, equity, and inclusion, digitalization of pretty much everything. How do you see that affecting? And I know I'm asking you to view a crystal ball basically, but any thoughts on how this is going to come down the road and affect your firms?
Wow.
Yeah, anybody.
That question takes an hour to answer. I could go off on a tangent, but I'm gonna try to be succinct and keep it down to a couple seconds. It's changing. It's changing a lot. The way we produce work is changing. I read a stat soon, and this is not to scare anybody on the call, but it's just a fact of the matter. The backlog and the work that's coming to our profession, we currently do not have enough students in school right now to meet that need coming up over the next 10 to 15 years. And that's going to force a shift in how we think about architecture, how we think about how we produce work. You're starting to see, if you're keeping up with the mergers and acquisitions and things like that, you're starting to see a lot more of that happening because firms are doubling down on growth and trying to prepare. And that's going to affect the small firm. But one of the things that we are doing now to try to stay relevant as these times change is adopt a culture of technology, embrace the move to virtual work, embrace the move to sort of enhance documentation, that sort of thing, so that we can be prepared when ultimately changes, because it's coming. Not to scare anybody though. It's going to be fun. It's going to be exciting. You want to be a part of it, but it is going to change.
Totally agree with that. And I think to kind of address another side of change in terms of how we think about sustainability, equity, and design, is that for firms, in order to stay competitive with other offices when we're going for projects, I mean, we have to be thinking about this and being active and doing research to learn more and get with it, because that's how we win the work. I mean, I think the culture is changing. So you want to be working with architects that are with it. So I would say that is something that is encouraging to me.
I'm glad those two went first. I would say, you know, architecture is definitely about continuous learning and evolution and progression, which in many ways aligns with the constant change. It's impossible to predict it, which is a bit of the stress that comes. But I think with every one of those challenges comes an opportunity. If we've got more work than we can handle, maybe we can get some higher rates. If clients want to pursue sustainability, then we've got an opportunity to have real impact. So, you know, the list goes on, and I really think that, you know, a lot of push for JEDI is having a lot of influence on the way that people are hiring and the way that they're making moves. And if we can get ahead and educate youngsters, I mean, elementary, middle school age, about what the profession is, which I wasn't aware until I was late in high school. Maybe there's an opportunity to help to grow and inspire, you know, yet another generation down the line.
Absolutely. I think those are all good points. And if anyone's interested, I'm going to share my hot take on this. I am by no means a firm owner or running a firm right now, but I think what I would suggest in this area of change, don't fight digital, be prepared and be ready and make sure you feel comfortable with it. And if you're not, take a class. There's no shame in learning more. Education should be a lifelong process, not a 5-year process and then goodbye, even though I don't want to ever take an exam again. I think for smaller and medium-sized firms, ingraining yourselves in the community so that way you are a staple and valued, and the community fights for you if change comes down the line where conglomerate is the answer. It's not. We have antitrust laws for a reason, but respecting and listening to what students want is something I think AIS is super passionate about, because while we're given a seat at the table, that's great. We can talk all day, but if we're not listened to, nothing's going to happen. And students want diversity, mental health, respect, and they want sustainable designers to teach them what they can do, because there's nothing like that clock in New York City telling us we have 5 years till the world ends, just banging on our heads every day to light a fire under our asses. And then I would say large firms definitely need to respect smaller and mid-sized firms, ensuring that they survive, because they're so necessary. Because if you all don't know him, there's a guy named Jermaine Barnes at Iowa State University, and he's a great professor and designer. And he talks about, if you're going to design in a community, you should be in that community. And with larger firms, that's not always possible, but with smaller firms, you're working where you are. And lastly, I think Andrew really touched on this, the K-12 outreach. If you can go to a firm, oh, thank you, Marcus. If you as a firm can go to an elementary school or high school or middle school and talk about architecture as a choice of a profession, students think when they're younger, I can be a doctor or a lawyer, and that's how I can increase my general wealth of my family. Architecture is an option too. So we're going to wrap it up there. I'm really happy with how this panel went, and thank you to all our panelists who are hopping off now. Corey, do we have anything else to share at the end of this?
No, we just look forward to hopefully seeing many of you at an in-person celebration at the end of April. So thank you, Shannon. Great job.
Absolutely. All righty, everybody. Have a lovely weekend. And we will hopefully see you in April for a big shebang at the end of this program. Have a great weekend, everybody.